They say pressure makes diamonds, but carbon goes through a lot of suffering for a really long time before it becomes a diamond. So when we use that analogy, particularly for founders and entrepreneurs, that you need pressure in order to be able to perform, I think that's outdated thinking. No, it's not that I think that. I know that based on the consults that I have with founders and CEOs. Pressure might make diamonds, but it crushes people in the process, which makes no sense to me. That's what I want to talk about. Because I think we've got this backwards, especially when it comes to business, that you're supposed to be putting yourself under a lot of pressure in order to yield really amazing results. But that doesn't work. More often than not, pressure just crushes you and it makes you feel like shit in the process. All for what? Some scar tissue to make you feel like you've survived some kind of war? But we're not out here fighting a war. We're trying to run a business. So I want to challenge that today. I want to give you the thinking and the tools that I've used with clients who have come to me struggling under an immense amount of pressure. I'll give you an example of what I've heard in the past. Actually, it was from Mark Cuban, of all people, from Shark Tank. He thinks it's really important for entrepreneurs and founders to not have a backup plan, to not have some kind of plan B or plan C. They need to have only one plan and they need to be hungry enough and have their back against the wall where they've got no other options to make it absolutely work. I don't think that's healthy. And I actually don't think that's helping the business either. I find the opposite is true. I find that when you do have a backup plan, when you do have an insurance policy, you tend to perform better because you're not worried. And the best analogy I can give for that is imagine having a car, any car, but it might be a luxury car or a supercar of some kind. If you're driving with that car down the road and you've got no insurance whatsoever, how do you think you're going to drive? You're going to be careful. You're going to hold back. You're going to be especially cautious because you don't want to accidentally hit anything or anyone, hopefully. You shouldn't be hitting anyone anyway. But you'll park so far away from all the other cars. You'll make sure that you've parked in the widest spot possible. You'll steer as far away from objects where you're kind of being overly cautious and probably driving in different lanes and stuff like that, where you're getting in other people's way as a way to try and avoid other people. Like it completely changes your driving behavior. All for what? Because you don't have insurance. But if you've got insurance, suddenly your driving changes. You're a little bit more relaxed. You're a little bit more comfortable. You're not thinking about all the obstacles, and you might actually be enjoying the experience a little bit more and enjoying the journey of driving wherever you're going. The same is true for having backup plans. I've had people come to me, founders coming to me, stressing that the business is not going the way they want it to. They're having a bit of a meltdown and they're freaking out. They're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but none of this is working. And I feel like I'm trying to extract water out of a stone. No matter what I do, very little or anything at all is coming through. And so instead of trying to calm them down by telling them that it's going to be okay and make them feel good, I actually do the opposite. I ask them a simple question. What are you going to do if this doesn't work? And they're like, well, that's not an option. I said, well, it's a possibility. I don't know about you, but my crystal ball is broken, so I can't tell you whether or not things are going to work. So I'd rather us work out that now, so then you're not having to work it out at the last minute. So what's the worst case scenario? What happens if this doesn't work? And they're like, well, I don't know. I suppose I'd go and get a job. I'm like, okay, where? Like, I don't know. I've never had a job before. Like, okay. Well, let's just assume you decided to go for a job. Let's say it all failed overnight. Next week, what would you decide to do to go and get a job so you can continue living or supporting your family financially, if that's what you're doing? And inevitably, what they end up sharing is, if they're an entrepreneur, usually they're just like, I'll just go and start another business. In fact, I've had this other idea for a business for a really long time. Maybe I might actually go and execute on that, which is kind of interesting. But if they don't have a business idea, they come up with one. They're like, I'll probably just go and start something else. I'll find a service that I know I can help people with, or I'll find somebody else that could use my help in business and bring all my experience from building my own business and failing at it and helping that person not make the same mistakes. I'm like, great, okay. So you've got other solutions. They're like, yeah, I could go and do these other things. And usually we come up with 2 or 3 different alternatives of options that they could take if things don't work out. But then once we've got them down on the table, what's really interesting is when they start looking at their current situation that they were struggling with and they felt like they couldn't turn into something successful, the pressure alleviated. They didn't feel so stuck. In fact, they actually felt like there were some solutions that they didn't see before because they were so stuck in this survival state. But the moment we introduce 2 or 3 different insurance policies of if this fails, what else can you do? Suddenly they're like, oh, I've got a new zest and a new energy for what I'm currently doing. It wasn't that I needed to corner them, back them into a corner, make them feel like they had no other options to switch on the hustle. I'm more interested in turning the fear down, which is crushing them, which is part of the pressure, and helping them thrive instead. And building a sense of enthusiasm for what they're doing and an energy and a liveliness. Because what's really interesting is, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I tend to be drawn to and attracted to people who have a vitality about them, an energy about them where they love what they do. They tend to be magnetic. And if they're in business, if we get to pick between them and people that are just going through the motions and doing it for the sake of doing it, we tend to be drawn to the people that love it. And there's countless examples I've had when it comes to restaurants, where I've gone and looked at a couple of different restaurants in a particular strip and gone and looked at the various menus, and I find myself feeling drawn to the one that has the maitre d' that is really energetic and vibrant about the food that they're serving or the people they get to serve. It gives off a different energy. I don't even know how good the food is or not, but I know that I'm drawn to that because there's an essence about them loving what they're doing that I'm attracted to. So when we take the pressure off and we've got these different insurance policies in place, these backup plans, okay, well, that we could go and do those things if we need to or if we choose to, but I still want to go and do this thing that I'm focused on. Even though it's not working, I want to find a way through it. And then suddenly the pressure's off and you start having fun with it. And what's the point of doing any of this if we're not having fun? Like even emergency department, first responders, paramedics, firefighters, rescue teams, they still have fun with what they do. They take it seriously and they understand that these are life or death circumstances, but they still enjoy what they do. They're choosing to do it. So if those people who are dealing with literal life or death circumstances are having fun with what they're doing, why can't you and I in the civilian world, doing what we do for business and doing what we do in service and products, actually enjoy ourselves? Like, what are we doing here if we're not having fun? What's the point of this? I don't know about you, but I didn't come here to suffer for the sake of suffering. I'm not a martyr. I'm a business person. I'm a coach. I'm here to help people. And I help people with some of the deepest, darkest trauma that you can imagine. And I don't take this that seriously in terms of I've got to be really stiff and proper and have no fun in this. In fact, it's usually the darkest, most painful sessions that clients are having with me that I'm making the most jokes to lighten the mood, to show them that this doesn't have to be serious. We can still work through these past pains and you not feel so traumatized by it and not feel so stuck. We can actually have a laugh at the end of all of this. We've got to start having more fun. So if you're feeling stuck and under all of this pressure that you're wrestling with right now, my suggestion is look for your different insurance policies, your different backup plans, get them down on paper, think them through. If you have a life partner who also happens to be a business partner, or at least they're part of your journey in entrepreneurship in some way, shape or form, talk to them about it. If this doesn't work, this is what I'd probably do. Be honest with them, be honest with yourself, get it out. Get really clear about it, take the pressure off. And then once you've done that, you can ask yourself a simple question. What options haven't I considered that could make this work? Because when you take that pressure off, suddenly you get to see that there wasn't just path A or B, there's path C through Z. There's so many different options, not in terms of your insurance policies, your backup plans. I'm talking about within the thing that you're struggling with, within the current business, for example. There's so many other options nested within that that you haven't considered, but because there's so much pressure, we tend to develop tunnel vision and can't see anything else. So my preference for you is that you take that pressure off and then suddenly ask yourself, what are the different options that exist there that I was too stuck to see? It makes me think of this thing my dad used to make me do. I used to help him in the garage when I was a kid. That is where his workshop was. And he was an electronics engineer and technician. So he'd repair electronic devices, home entertainment, computers, and things like that. And so we're dealing with, this is early 90s, so we were dealing with micro components. And that's when we started to get into microchips being more and more prevalent in home consumer goods. So tiny little screws for the circuit boards and also tiny little components. And sometimes I would help him with soldering the boards and soldering the different components. And when I was doing that, I would drop a component here and there or a screw. And I'd freak out. I'm like, where am I going to find this? I'm not going to find it. I'm like, Dad's going to be upset. And he'd see me searching around sort of frantically trying to find the screw or the component. And he's like, stand up from your seat and step back from the desk. I'm like, no, Dad, because I'm pretty sure it fell just here to the right. And if I move, I'm going to lose it. He's like, trust me. Get off your chair, take a few steps back, and look. And so I would literally, because I was smaller at the time, I would get down from this high stool, step back from the workbench, and look. And within the space of 3 seconds, I would immediately find it. And he would explain to me, it's because you can't see it from where you're at. You're in it. You can't see it from there. So you've got to take a few steps back to get the perspective you need to be able to scan the entire space really quickly, and then you'll find it. But you are making yourself an obstacle when you're standing in it. So I'm having to try and look around myself while I'm looking for one of these screws or components that have fallen onto the floor. Whereas if I take a step back, I'm no longer an obstacle that I need to try and look around. I'm no longer placing myself in space. And I think we need to do that sometimes. In order to get this perspective, we take ourselves out and say, okay, well, what else would I do if I wasn't doing this? And we remove ourselves from this particular situation. And then suddenly we get the perspective and the lights come on and we see the things that we couldn't see before. And that way I would find the screw or the component. I would be able to sit back on the stool at the workbench and finish the work I was doing and get the unit working again, put it back together, and we were off and away. That's what I want for you, where you can step back into something like that once you've removed yourself and gotten the perspective for a minute. Because when you do arrive back in it, things start working again because you've got a different perspective, because you no longer have the pressure on. So do me a favor, take the pressure off. You're still going to shine brightly like a diamond, but you don't necessarily have to suffer in the process. Being squeezed by all this pressure makes no sense. Now that I've given you this thought experiment to help take the pressure off, check out this next video where I explain how you can break really big problems down into smaller chunks to make them manageable. I'll see you there.